We are joined by the AOCA Board of Governors, including the Presidential Line, Dr. David Ninan and Dr. Jen Hargrave. Dr. Ninan will begin the meeting today, followed by updates from our board members, and at the end of the meeting we will have a Q&A. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ninan.
Thank you, Ursula. Before we jump into and if you could leave the PPT slide up, I don't know if that's an option. Before we jump into the business meeting where we do the fiscally responsible analysis, which we will definitely do and dissect out our situation, I wanted to take a minute to go deeply off script and thank you for the opportunity to have been able to serve the last year and editorialize a minute about my own views, which do not necessarily reflect my peers nor the AOCA. So with that, and with the risk of offending people accidentally, and I feel like, what the heck, I got the mic, I'm gonna take this chance. I wanna ask the question, what is the AOCA? When I first heard of the AOCA, my experience was not positive. It was quite the opposite. I did not like the AOCA one bit. I was a serious critic of the organization and in my view at the time how, and still my view, just some of the things that went on. My mentor, who ironically was an MD, called me aside and called me on the carpet, and this is in California, 20 years ago, and he said, look, you're going to get out here of residency pretty soon. There's not going to be a lot of people like you out there. You're going to need your family. You're going to need your backup. You're going to need support. You can't do this alone. So nobody is going to look out for an osteopathic anesthesiologist like another osteopathic anesthesiologist. And furthermore, he said, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the critic on the sideline who judges, or do you want to be part of the solution? And he referred me to this quote, which I'm not going to read, but I'm sure we're all familiar with, the Theodore Roosevelt quote. So in my view, the AOCA, and this is where I'm going off the reservation, in my view, the AOCA is an osteopathic anesthesiologist, whether they pay dues to our organization or not. And I say that because everybody's situation is unique and everybody's situation is different. There's 47-some-hundred osteopathic anesthesiologists. There's 1,000-something members in our organization, which reflects the fact that everything is different. Now, some are not members because they are not aware of us. Some are not members because they don't have the resources to join. Some are not members because, and the resources, it could be financial, it could be time. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's journey in life is different. I was very blessed in that my job supported things like this. It gave me the time, it gave me the bandwidth, and so I chose the journey that I chose. Earlier this year, I was called by a DO anesthesiologist who was negotiating a contract he really wanted with a group. And it was going well. They came to terms with the group. He was super excited, but a couple of the hospitals where he would be working did not allow AOBA board certified individuals on their staff. And so that was right at that point, that critical point in that discussion. So he reached out to his network and we had a lot of discussions because, as you know, that is not a simple question. You could go in with a lot of facts and figures, but this is a negotiation. There's subtlety there, there's timing there, there's strategy there. It's very complex. So we talked it through, he worked it out with others, and it ended up subsequently being very successful. But I want to say, not to reflect on myself, but I know this is how most of us are, probably everybody that I know. I didn't qualify him to see if he was a member of the AOCA. I actually didn't care. I was just one osteopathic anesthesiologist trying to look out for another osteopathic anesthesiologist and help support what was important to them in life. So, summing up my editorial then, my view, the AOCA is simply one osteopathic physician looking out for another osteopathic physician because we're all in a very unique arena that is not, there is not precedent in many situations. So with that being said, I'm going to dive into the analysis, and I'll stop editorializing at the best of my ability. When we look at our current active members, we have 439 dues-paying members. And that reflects a gradual decrease in the numbers, not a dramatic one, but a gradual steady decline in the numbers funding the college. And also there's kind of exciting news in there. We have 596 residents, and my eyeballs aren't as good as they used to be, 138. So we have an increased number of resident attendees and student members, which brings hope for the future. When we look at our age distribution of our active members, we see that we have a large pool that are starting to hit that retirement window. So our attrition is quite to be expected. Now, I will say that it is, the numbers aren't as dramatic as the age would reflect. I'm suspecting that's the fact that people might practice longer. I'm suspecting that that might be some people choosing to support the college longer, probably some combination thereof. But the trend is clear. We are going to continue to grow and continue to build our resources and support each other. We're going to need to expand our member base. When we look at our expense and revenue analysis, I sliced this out so it would be a little bit easier to follow. Compared to last year's actual and this year's budget, we're about even, about $10,000 to $12,000 in the positive. And again, our goal here is not to make money. We're not a for-profit. Our goal is to just put the minimum amount in to get the resources and services that we need. And at the end of the day, a win for us is we didn't go negative and we were able to expand our services. When we look at our membership rolls, these are actual, the 2022 is actual number, not proposed, but there's a somewhat of a small decrease which reflects retirement and the usual attrition. Like I said, it's better than I would have expected, but it's something that we need to be real about. When we look at the mid-year seminar, you'll notice a pretty big jump. Now that's a couple-fold reasons. One, the 2021 had we're switching to an in-person environment, so that mix from the hybrid online thing, switching to the in-person drives the costs. But there's also this factor of inflation. Hotel costs, venues, food, you name it, is going through the roof, and the dues are constant. So I do not see, looking forward, the same level of service for the same dollar amount put in. And I don't say this to be pessimistic, I think we should be realistic about our expectations and kind of our overall strategy going forward. If we look at the online portions, you see in 2021 we started to pioneer, so you'll see that we invested some money. We did not charge anything, so of course we were negative as we experimented and tried something new. And then when we look at this year, we're just a tiny bit above positive, which is kind of our target for our online revenue. And then the good news is, over the years, we've built up a reserve fund of $1.1 million, which we want to spend very, very strategically, developing initiatives and things that will benefit our long-term interest. When we look at our mid-year attendance analytics, you'll see a very interesting uptrend in non-members attending the meeting. So there's an opportunity there to inspire some of those non-members to join us. And similarly, we look at the annual meeting analytics now. Just for explanation, the big outlier there was that COVID year of the virtual meeting. So it's really hard to know how to factor that into the analysis. So it's very, very, very important now, more than any time in our history, to recognize the fact that what may have served us in the past may not serve us in the future. So what was very effective and worked may or may not work. We have a retiring member base, but fortunately that's balanced by a large group of potential interested residents and students. And in addressing that, we're going to have to really recognize the fact that they are a very different generation. They have different perceptions. They have different needs. They demand things like online things. Many things that I'm used to and comfortable with is very, very different. And secondly, the external environment which we're operating, quite inflationary times, decreasing support from many people's employers in supporting them going to CME, and obviously the increasing venue costs. So things of the future may look significantly different than the past. So with that, I'm going to open up to a roundtable with the board, and Jim, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I was chair of the advocacy committee, and one of the first things I did was try to reach out to the various organizations, ASA, AOA, and the Federation of State Medical Boards, to form some partnerships to have a two-way communication so that we can be alerted to things happening in real time within the advocacy area. For those of you that may not know, the Federation of State Medical Boards is comprised of, every state has a medical board, and the members of these medical boards get together as a Federation of State Medical Boards. Unbeknownst to me, within that Federation of State Medical Boards, there's a subset of a group called the American Association of Osteopathic Examiners, which is comprised of DOs from various states. So there'd be a DO from Virginia, Pennsylvania, California, and they comprise a subset within the Federation looking out for osteopathic interest within the larger realm of advocacy. So reaching out to them, they all cover slightly different things that affect us as osteopathic anesthesiologists. Scope of practice issues, payment methodologies, opioid prescribing regulations, licensure and certification. So through this collaboration with them, we don't have the resources as a group ourselves to match something like the ASA or AOA, obviously. But partnering with them, we can really form kind of a coalition and get our voice heard. So we've signed on to a number of 7 or so letters throughout the year involving this same sort of legislative issues that I just enumerated. In addition, one of our members, David Klingensmith, attended the ASA Legislative Day on our behalf. We have second Sunday webinars, and one of them was devoted to advocacy, and during that webinar it was myself, Jen Hargrave, and David Klingensmith. We also had Manny Bonilla, who is the Chief Advocacy Officer for the ASA, David Pugash, who was the Vice President of Policy at the AOA, and then Rain Richards was Director of State Government Affairs. And we had a robust discussion on various aspects of advocacy as it affects us as osteopathic anesthesiologists. So that's on the, you can access that on the AOCA website tab. So going forward, in terms of how you yourself can help us with advocacy, if you just go on the AOCA website, there are links to AOA and ASA. You can easily join a grassroots network and have instant alerts to various relevant legislative things coming up. You can add your voice, just basically it's very easy, one click, and you can sign on to these various letters. In addition, when you think about it, we all advocate for ourselves every day as osteopathic anesthesiologists. In our hospital or our surge centers or our hospital systems, we advocate for our department, for our anesthesia groups, among administrators and hospital staff. I would encourage everyone to stay active with your state osteopathic society and medical societies. Sign on and contribute to your PACs. Only a few people contribute to PACs, but everybody benefits. And then finally, if you see or even hear of any discrimination, kind of the situation that David was describing. In Rhode Island, we had a situation where we had this was a couple of years ago, when ACGME merger was kind of coming about. We had a internal medicine resident hospitalist applying for a job in one of the larger hospitals in Rhode Island, and he was denied hospital privileges because he trained at a DO program. And there were several other osteopathic physicians in Rhode Island that were denied hospital privileges because they were AOA certified rather than ABMS certified. So these are the situations we need to hear about. We want to hear about them, and we'll surely advocate on your behalf. If you can bring these problems to us, we'll go after it vigorously. Thank you.
And Jennifer, do you mind sharing?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just tag on for a moment, Jim, and thank you so much for the work that you've done regarding advocacy, and David and Tanya and some of the others. I think Jeremy's been involved with that, so thank you so much for that. Building those relationships are very important, because when David or anyone in the AOCA receives that phone call saying, I'm having trouble being able to sign a contract because there's some limitations secondary to my initials or my board certification, we need to be able to have those connections. And so therefore, by interacting and developing those relationships with ASA, with Federation State Medical Board, with AOA, whoever that may be, those are critical as we, as the AOCA, are able to interact and support our members. David had asked me if I could just talk a little bit about a couple of aspects that I think the ASA, or I apologize, that the AOCA can bring that is extremely helpful for members. I think maybe the first thing I'll mention, and David touched on it, is the ideal of family. I don't know how many around here have been during breakfast or during breaks, and as you're seeing old friends and you're watching everyone give hugs to each other, because it's been a few years because we've had a chance to see each other. Just the fraternity that we have, and the really the sense of enjoyment of being around each other and being able to find each other. Sometimes at conferences, they're so large, and you're struggling to just know who individuals are, and the opportunity to meet new individuals. And I've already met at least probably 15 to 20 people here that I didn't know before. Had a chance to learn a little bit about their practices and their interests, and some of the issues and challenges that they're facing. So I think that's really a great component and a wonderful aspect of our college, and we cannot lose that. We're out to take care of each other, and that's why we have to work really hard to maintain that fraternity. So. And I think, David, you also wanted me to maybe talk a little bit about access, and that being a unique component to the AOCA. It's wonderful, and I just want to say hats off to the Professional Education Committee, to Karen and to Jessica for all the work that they've done bringing in these nationally recognized experts. But the amazing thing is that at the end of the conference, you can catch them right down in the hallway and have a conversation with them, and be able to get to meet them and clarify some components or ask them about a specific question that you have, and those are things that you lose, that you don't necessarily see at times in larger meetings. So I think it's a wonderful thing about our college, and it's not only about just having access at 2 meetings during the year. One of the strategic plans and the vision that we've had is to be sure that we can access and have interactions, like a longitudinal interaction with our members. So the second Sunday online webinars that started this summer, that'll be carried out. We're planning for 10 months out of the year. We'll skip the 2 months that we have meetings, but we're planning for 10 different sessions throughout the year that you can either watch live with us, chat. I'll ask people to come off mic if they're interested or have something to say, or we answer questions in the chat. You have a chance for an interactive experience. Those allow members of the college to come together from the comfort of your lazy boy recliner on a Sunday afternoon and be able to interact. So we're looking forward to continuing to develop those, and I think they'll be critical to not only the members of our college currently, but as we get to know new members. And many of our younger members love the aspect of being able to, again, enjoy learning from the recliner or wherever they're at on a Sunday, on the run, from their phone, on the Zoom, however we do it. But we want to be able to reach out and use and leverage technology to allow us to interact more than just twice a year. So.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about some of the online plans as you're kind of spearheading and championing that line?
Yeah, great question, David. And I'll be honest, some of it is looking at issues that have been highlighted in the news, trying to sort of build up maybe recent publications that have come out, trying to build our sessions on that. Ideally, there'll be a little bit of a mix between a clinical excellence, so that would be a panel discussion, commonly case built, but having 3 or 4 experts in the field talking about different aspects of a case. But if there are sort of highlights or recent events that we want to focus on, we take just a step away and do our very best to integrate some breaking news sort of discussions that are relevant to the medical field, whether it be advocacy, whether it be some ideas of financial planning. I've had some requests for that, perhaps a couple of webinars on best practice for physicians, young and old, in financial considerations. So some hot topics that are just very relevant to the day-to-day anesthesiologist.
Well, thank you much. We're bumping on 11:50, so I think this might be a good time to wrap. But I do want to say one thing that's very important is feedback from everybody, and I would strongly encourage anybody with any suggestions, ideas, thoughts, concerns to email, talk to any one of us or Julie. Unfortunately, with the now online venue where we have so many participants, it gets unwieldy to do it in a live session without taking up an astronomical amount of time.
And I will just say that president at aocaonline.edu, Julie, or com? aoaonline.com? AOCA. Okay. Okay, so it's president at aocaonline.org is a very quick access to myself and the AOCA team, so please reach out to us if you have any thoughts.
I would just add one other thing. I put an appeal out to everyone. Please try and get involved. This is your college, and we want to hear from you how we can improve every aspect of it. Also, from students on to residents and everybody else along the spectrum of practice. Get involved with the college, serve on a committee. It's a new dimension of your practice, something outside the OR that is really rewarding. You're helping your college and you're helping your profession, and you're helping the profession that helps you.
And just to piggyback off of what Jim said, the college for myself has opened doors that I would have never had open before in my life. I know that not all individuals are an osteopathic physician at an academic center, but if you are at an academic center, the expectations of your performance, that's completely dependent upon your pay. And so an institution like this allowed me opportunity to participate in a national organization and had significant impact on the future direction of my career. And we need to have these opportunities for other osteopathic physicians who might be in similar situations, because it's very hard at times to build your portfolio, which is a requirement at an academic center. And so that's one of the things that I'm forever grateful to the college, and I personally, to me, means so much. And I hope that, and I plan to continue to offer that speaking presentations committee, or speaking opportunities, committee involvement, etc. And it's critical for our osteopathic students. It's a competitive world out there to become an osteopathic resident. And if you can participate in a poster session at a national conference, if you can be on a national committee, it builds your CV in a way that it's probably, you will not recognize till a few years down the road. But it is a critical service that we need to provide to our osteopathic medical students, residents, and others. So I'm so grateful that the college offers that opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for your service, whether it's formally in the organization or informally supporting your other osteopathic peers. And thank you much, Ursula.
Okay, please join me in thanking the AOCA Board of Governors. And now